Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Weight Room podcast. This is episode 6, and we have Dave Ananayo on today. Did I even say that right? I feel like I say it.
It's been like 4 years, Brad.
I was gonna say it's kind of fucked up that you don't know how to say it.
That's how I say it. So I couldn't be wrong. So Dave is working as our head strength and conditioning coach or performance manager for our EXOS facilities here in St. Louis. Dave was a coach with me and Ryan. It was us three running that facility. Somehow didn't burn down. So we thought first guest would be great to have Dave on and kind of touch base. I know you and Ryan probably haven't chatted since he was in town, so it'd be good to just talk a little bit about where you're at, Dave, and yeah, welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I don't know how official I should be on this, or what's our boundaries? Where
we don't have. It's beyond the weight room.
We all know each other. There are no boundaries.
Yeah. But I mean, I was trying to think of some stuff just from your experiences and stuff that would be cool to talk about. And I think a lot of the stuff that we've gone into in the last few episodes has been more specifically like, acceleration based, science based stuff. But I do want to talk a little bit about kind of how people become strength coaches in general. And I think it's a field that I don't know. You probably get this from every field, but obviously we're in strength and conditioning, and there's people from all different backgrounds. You don't need necessarily a specific certification to be a trainer or to be a strength coach. There's some people that probably don't even have any certification and they still are really good coaches, right? So I think the background for us is always vastly different in how we got into strength and conditioning. So I don't know if we wanted to kick it off with you kind of talking about, first off, what brought you into loving just in general exercise, and then kind of how you ended up here with us.
Yeah, so I grew up in Hawaii, right? I've talked about this, post about it all the time, but grew up in Hawaii, so obviously that area is just very outdoorsy, and grew up surfing, wrestling, playing soccer, and boxing. And out of those four sports, boxing has always been my main one. And everything else is just kind of a little bit more of an accessory just to kind of get in shape and help out with my main sport and everything like that. And so just being extremely active growing up, I knew I couldn't sit still for more than an hour at a time, right? Like kind of starting in middle school, all throughout high school and everything, I knew I didn't want to sit at a desk and stare at a computer screen for 6 to 8 hours, 5 days out of the week and look forward to the weekend. I knew I wanted to be involved in something, one, that's bigger than myself, two, would allow me to give back to the community and give back to people around me, and three, allow me to stay active and stay physically fit. I've seen a lot of people that were amazing athletes in high school and middle school and in their younger years, and all of it just kind of slip away. I knew that was something that I didn't want for me. And so my first logical thought was, going into college, athletic training sounded really cool. Not having any idea what it was. I knew I liked sports and I knew I liked training. So kind of took it at face value, and I thought that athletic training was what I was doing now. And it was a rude awakening having a 4 a.m. wake up time and filling coolers with ice and wrapping football players' feet at 4:30 in the morning, where I realized that this is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So it was sophomore year of college, transitioned from being an athletic training major into exercise science. And it was my junior and senior year of college where I had the opportunity to volunteer at nursing homes and special populations with Special Olympics and everything like that. That really made me fall in love with the science behind movement, with biomechanics, and what exercise really is. And so after college, I got an internship with Emerge Everyone, which is or I should say Emerge Adaptive, which is a program run by Emerge Fitness Training that provides services for individuals with cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, autism, Down syndrome, conditions like that. And so that's where I actually got my start, is just working with special pops and really having to think outside of the box as far as what exercise is and how to progress people that people don't normally work with. It's not a common population to work with in the strength and conditioning field. And so I did that for a few years, and slowly but surely got introduced to the sport performance world just through other trainers at the private facility that I was at, where I would see the things that they were doing and thought it was really cool. So just really dove into it, started studying a lot of sport performance coaches, a lot of sport performance articles, so on and so forth. And eventually got my EXOS performance specialist certification, dove in a little bit more. And that's when I get connected with you guys. So had the opportunity to start off part-time, got my CSCS, and then Ryan left us, and now we're here.
Son of a bitch.
I love that story up until you had to just throw me under the bus.
Son of a bitch. I was gonna say, with your background in boxing, you were what level did you? And I know you were like, was it junior nationals or?
Yeah, so I got to compete with Team USA all over the country, and competed in Ringside World Tournament in 2015. Got to go to Golden Gloves in New York and everything like that. So got to travel all across the U.S., met a bunch of cool people, and fight a lot of cool people, inspire a lot of cool people, and yeah.
Did you knock out more people, or did you get knocked out more?
I have never been knocked out. I've been knocked down.
There you go.
I've knocked out more people than I have been knocked out.
That's a good stat then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I was going to say, with your background in boxing, you know, we all obviously got into this field for a lot of different reasons, but it all starts with us enjoying working out at some capacity.
Right.
Did that start with boxing, or was it before or after that?
So it actually started with wrestling. So my boxing coach was real old school, didn't want me lifting weights at all, which I knew better than that. So on the side, when I wasn't in the boxing gym and doing skills training, I would lift outside of it. But with wrestling, it was a lot of P90X, you know, those workout videos type of deal. And then
Yeah, Ryan runs those.
Yeah, Ryan runs those now. But I think the biggest thing for me as far as working out and lifting weights itself was the wrestling team would invite us middle schoolers up to the high school to lift weights for them. And I saw the kind of community that can be formed inside of the weight room because of that. Because you got the seventh graders and eighth graders, which is where I was working out with with juniors, seniors, and sophomores, right? And so you go into the mind of a eighth grader who's very impressionable, and you're like, oh man, these guys want to hang out with me, and they want to help me get better, and that's just really made a mark on me. It helped shape my personal philosophy today as far as weight training goes and what it means to have a community in the gym.
I think one thing that is different about your path is with Emerge, and it is unique to hear that someone gets their foundations of training with a special population like that. I wish more people could have the opportunity to do that. I've seen what you do. I've been there. I follow along because you still train there with some of your clients. Yeah. What do you think a purely strength and conditioning on a sporting side could learn, either through someone like you or going and working with some of these other populations that are less known?
Yeah, I think someone who doesn't have this background is just pure sport performance and by the books might struggle a little bit when they're running to an athlete who's not responding to your traditional cues, right? Like, let's say we've got someone doing a barbell squat and they're not responding to sit down in a chair or keep your chest, drop your chest a little bit, bend your knees, so on and so forth, right? So I think having the background of working with individuals who, first off, you're not even going to cue in that traditional sense ever, right? If I have someone with cerebral palsy, I'm never going to have them under a barbell just because, one, their condition is not going to allow for that. But I know that I need to work their quads, and I know I want to do a lower body push type of movement with them. And so I might have a modified exercise with them that's might resemble a squat, but the way I'm going to cue it is going to be extremely different to a normal able-bodied athlete, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like someone with cerebral palsy might not understand the cue of pushing the ground away, and so I might need to palpate their quads or their hips a lot more than I would a regular able-bodied athlete, or I might need to cue a little bit uh, more, a little more non-traditional than a football player.
Yeah. I think with obviously the cueing is a huge piece of it too when you're a young
Right.
coach and like learning different ways to cue the same exercise. But also something we talk about with our young coaches that I think you learned very early because of this was it's not necessarily the specific exercise. It doesn't need to be. It's like what's the end goal of that exercise, and that can translate
Right.
to a bunch of different shit. Just because, like you were saying, you're trying to work quads and doing some kind of squat. Well, there's a fucking 1,000 different ways we can work quads.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a squat. This person can't squat. We could do a potentially do like a wall sit, or they can literally do just a leg extension, or I have no clue what level they're at, but even just like a quad hold, if they have really low function. I do that with Sarah, and she's has MS and is in a wheelchair, and I just push down her leg when she's laying, and she just has to like try to contract her quad. She's not actually like really moving it that much, but that's all the ability she has. We're still at the end of the day working what we're trying to do. That same
Right.
general movement pattern potentially, or even just muscle group. A
Yeah.
lot of times coaches will come in, interns will come in, they'll see our program, a program that you wrote, program that I wrote, Ryan wrote, whoever, and they'll like feel like they need to completely stick to the script. And I get that as a young coach. And part of the growing as a coach is building that toolbox to see something like a lunge and immediately know of 5-10 other things you can do based off of what
Right.
this person can or can't do.
Yeah, I think working with special populations definitely gives you an advantage in this field, because unfortunately a lot of the certifications and a lot of the colleges pushes everything by the book, right? And I mean, the three of us know that nobody ever really fits perfectly into a box. And so being able to work with special populations and having to think outside of, okay, this is what ACSM taught me, or this is what NISA taught me, right? And having to figure out a way to get a bilateral push out of somebody who's not able to stand up on their own forces you to think differently about how you program and how you order different exercises and how you cue different exercises. So I see it as an advantage for myself, because now I have a different perspective versus Joey, who only knows what college and ACSM and NSCA taught him.
Sounds like the ultimate refinement of coaching, in the sense of meeting your athletes where they're at, right? Like, if they've never been able to cue push the ground away because of their condition, like you said, like that's clearly not going to work. And part of being a really good coach is being able to say, hey, here's where this person is, whether they're an athlete or not. How can I make our training more accessible for them and get the most out of it? So yeah, I think that's like a great background to have when it comes to working with all populations, because it really does make you think outside of the box.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, working with that population is way more. I mean, I love working with Gen Pop and athletes and everything, but I have a client that was able to stand up and stay standing up for 30 seconds for the first time ever in her life. And to me, that felt way more rewarding than, again, all accomplishments is great, but getting an athlete's flying 10 time from to get it down by 0.05 seconds is great, but getting someone to stand up and stay standing up and being able to build up that strength was way more rewarding and gave me that that butterflies in the stomach feeling.
So getting somebody to walk again is more important than becoming faster. It's crazy. Dude, that is got to be crazy. Like, I've never worked with anybody in that capacity where we've had to like, and I know you spend like years with all these people already, like getting them to like walk again and stuff. But I think I found that later in my career with just like the late stage rehab stuff I got into, and I never necessarily thought that's what I was going to get into, but I just thoroughly enjoyed working with that population because they're generally way more motivated than most people in a general sense, because they're trying to get back to their fucking sport. A lot less excuses, right? B, when they're coming in, like you see that progress very vividly because there's like those specific goals that they need to hit. It's not just like, let's get stronger and faster, which is basically just getting better at the same movement. It's like, I don't know, there's drastically bigger goals when you're rehabbing an injury. So I'm assuming it's got to be a lot like that, but just, changing somebody's life versus getting them back to a sport.
Yeah, you also have the ability to tell any kid that's being soft in the gym, like, look, I have someone that I'm working with that just learned how to like stand up. Like in your bench, you're complaining about having to do 8x5 back squats. Like, come on, let's put everything in perspective here.
What?
Right.
8x5? Jesus
8x5,
Christ,
dude.
Oh, God,
All tourist program, all the clusters.
You got your baseball. Got your baseball guys doing that right now, Ryan?
No, some in the off season, some guys will do that, some rehab stints,
Yeah.
but no, we do more of like a traditional like 5-4-3. We'll do that across like off season, we'll bump up our sets and stuff. But I mean, if guys want to do it, I think it has its place off season rehab. In season, no shot. We're doing that. That much volume. It would just take too long and it's too much for them.
I will say what I think the biggest awakening for me, well, it was a rude awakening, was when I first got to TPH, and obviously we had some really, really talented kids there that knew they were great and wanted to work hard. And then we had kids there who were okay athletes that were okay with being okay athletes. I think that was a rude awakening for me because, coming out of college, everyone who's an exercise science major or who wants to work in the strength and conditioning field, you ask them what population they want to work with. And it's the first answer that I always hear is athletes, right? And I think college never prepared me for the motivational science aspect or psychology aspect of things as far as working with athletes goes. Because I mean, I'm sure both of you have worked with athletes who's extremely talented and does not want to put in any effort outside of their actual sport itself.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would argue that some of the most talented athletes are the ones that like to train in the weight room the least. That's always something that's interesting to work around and try to get the most out of those types because their ability on field, on court, on ice supersedes everybody else by so much that either they don't want to or don't feel the need to train because they're already so much better, or they just they don't find it as important as someone who does have to grind and somebody that has to live in the weight room in order to stay on the field and still get the shots that they deserve.
It's almost like if you're a youth athlete, I would almost rather my kid be good, but like average on his team and like keep making those better teams, obviously to get better coaching. And we've all seen that kid who is like the most skilled at the sport and he's, 12 and doesn't want to put it in the weight room because, they're used to just relying on their talent, and that's fine when you're 12. And then everybody hits puberty and that person either doesn't grow or doesn't get stronger compared to other people that are putting in the work, and they get left behind. So, we've all seen the people that make it strictly on talent. We've seen the people that work their ass off and don't have the talent to make it. And then you have the true unicorns that are the people that have ridiculous talent and work their ass off. And those generally become like not only pro guys, but even in that pro setting, those guys become like the cream of the crop.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's something I'm still having to learn now is how to analyze athletes and how to figure out whether they're actually hurting or they're actually tired or they just don't want to work hard, right? And I mean, I don't work with 99% of the population that I work with is 12 to, I want to say 16, 17 years old. And so I'm still having to learn how to read somebody when they tell me, hey, coach, I'm really tired from my games this weekend. Can I just do recovery or can I just do a mobility flow? Versus someone who's just BSing me, right? And they just don't want to work hard. So I'm still on that learning curve where I know this kid works really hard. and he's telling me the truth versus this kid never works hard and he's just trying to get out of today's workout. So
Yeah.
my question for you guys is, what have been some strategies that you guys have used when you work with those athletes in your careers? Is you've got the hard workers, you've got the okay workers, and then you've got the non-workers.
I mean, I guess it depends on the age group potentially, because if they're like really young, it's I think you're going to be better off as a coach trying to teach those people versus when you get to like college or you get to the later stages, those like non-workers. At that point, I'm like, get the fuck out. Like there's people here that are trying to get better. And I mean, I did that in pro baseball. We had guys that were even like prospects who just didn't want to do shit. And they maybe weren't necessarily like that on the field because that's what they wanted to do. They're like that in
Yeah.
the weight room. And I think trying to build the relationships first off, and build the communication. But inevitably, when you realize who those people are that are the non-workers, because you're not going to realize that right away, you know, they're going to have excuses and stuff.
Right.
And then eventually they'll burn you enough that you're just like, I want to focus on the kids that do want to work, or the kids that are like kind of in between and trying to get them to realize that they do want to work. When I was with the ski team, I was the second strength coach ever with free skiing because it was such a new sport. When you have like such a new sport like that, you don't really have a culture for working out because most people haven't had the opportunity to play that sport or do that sport at a pro level in the sense of like the Olympics or whatever. So it was never something that like, you know, you're not 12 years old skiing. You're like, I'm going to go get stronger so I can make it to the next level in skiing because there wasn't one, right? So for us, a lot of the older guys had never really worked out in the gym until they got hurt. So we had to come in and kind of shift this culture. And me and the other coaches went and basically grabbed the guys that were older that were now in the gym and tried to get them to almost like talk to the younger kids or even the middle generation kids about the importance of being in the gym and utilize them to spread that message versus you as like an outsider coach coming in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those younger kids see those older athletes and they look up to them. They, you know, that sport specifically, they've watched them in the X Games and whatever. And now they're talking to them about like what they do on a regular basis and what's helped them get better. And you get those kids to jump in.
I think that what Brett said, it nails how to change it without forcing it, right? Like you rely on the athletes that are there and established, whether it be the older players, the more talented ones, the ones you have the best relationship with. Their peers, the other players are always going to respect them more as players that are on the same field than they would coaches. So if I can shift our culture to a point where those big name guys, those prospects, those older guys, those vets that have been around, when you see it at TPH, some of those kids that are a little bit older that are going on to play in juniors, like if you can get those guys on board, and that might take a while, like I don't think any culture has grown overnight or even within a year. If you can get those guys bought in, like it's definitely going to smooth the transition for some of those fringe athletes and getting them to cross over into where you want them to be. Relationships obviously has like a very big part of it. One thing that I try to focus on too, especially with guys at high AA, whatever, like they're at the pro level, is I'm going to meticulously set everything up so they have to do zero work besides coming in, doing their work, and getting out. I want to make it as smooth and as integrated as a part of their day as possible. If all they need is 20 minutes in here, let's not spend any more time doing extra bullshit fluff. Like come in, do your stuff, get out. This is a constant part of your day, and that's all I want it to be. I want you to come in here. I don't want you to think about what you have to do. You should already know that, or it should already be laid out in front of you. Do it. See you later.
Yeah.
I found such success with being able to have stuff set up and ready to go for guys, whether it's, you know, bringing bands or foam rollers or massage balls out to the field because I know they're going to need it, or, you know, saying, hey, when you come to the gym, I'm going to have all this laid out for you. I think that just cuts down on that fluff, that cuts on their need to think about what they have to do that day because they already have all these other coaches. And if they're in school, you know, they got that kind of stuff they have to worry about. Like, just makes it simple. The simpler, the better for them.
Yeah, I think also meeting them in the middle when you do have the people that don't want to do it or you know, whatever. I had the Dominican guys coming in who didn't want to back squat because they'd never done that before and didn't want to learn that, didn't want to take the time to learn that, didn't really want to be in the weight room. And it's like, okay, I'll sit down and talk with them about like, what will you do? What are you comfortable with? And instead of me telling them this is the program they have to do and them just not wanting to come in, it's like, all right, fine. There's a leg press here. You can do the fucking leg press because you're used to that because that's all you have in the Dominican at the place that we had or whatever. Or again, when I was with the ski team, I had kids that like didn't want to do conditioning. They didn't want to do certain things, but they like to skateboard. So it's like, cool, let's make this a circuit then. You want to do the bowl for 2 minutes and then 1 minute rest, and we'll do rounds. And they would get hyped about that. And I would put like heart rate monitors on them. I check their lactate while they're fucking doing skating or skateboarding. And they were like pumped about that because it was about something that they cared about, not spinning on a bike or running or, shit that they didn't perceive as beneficial.
Yeah. I remember, so back when I was boxing, I was never the type of athlete to be like, all right, guys, let's get together. Let's do this together. So on and so forth. I was never that rah-rah guy, but I kind of going back to what you guys were talking about, how you would have the high performers pair up with the not so high performers and everything. I can vividly remember my coaches having these athletes with not the best work ethic. I'm not saying I had the greatest work ethic by any means, but they would have these guys that routinely would show up to training and not try, and they would shadow me, and that pushed me to be a better athlete in of itself, because now we got these guys looking up to me, and now I'm trying to show off for these guys, and now I'm trying to set a culture subconsciously because they're following me. And also now we're having to find kind of like what you did with the skateboarding thing, right? Now I'm tasked with finding ways of building buy-in from these guys to get our conditioning in, to get our training in, so on and so forth. And one of the best ways and funnest ways that we did was this round robin type of sparring, where it was literally one person was in the ring. It was 5-minute rounds. And so that person would stay in the ring all 5 minutes. And one person would come in for a minute. They get out at the end of the minute, next person comes in. And basically the guy that stayed in the minute all 5 minutes, or stayed inside the ring all 5 minutes, basically tried not to die.
King of the hill. That's what we used to do that shit in wrestling.
Yeah, it's fun and it's unconventional, and I think that's what athletes thrive on is kind of going back to the whole people not being able to connect with athletes because everything is by the book. I think you have to be versatile as a strength coach and having to find ways to get the work that they give athletes the work that they need without having to stick to the script.
Yeah. Dude, do you like how you asked that question and my very first response was basically like, fuck them kids. Then I came back around to, all right, calm down, bro. No, the kid didn't want to work. Fuck him.
But yeah, it comes down, it's finding those ways that aren't by the book. The best buy-in I've ever gotten is centered around eating Uncrustables. And we made a day, Anabolic Friday. It's, hey, we're going to slug pre-workout. We're going to eat Uncrustables. We might do some smelling salts. We're going to turn up house music. We're going to put on a party light. And you're going to scan in for us. And that became like this infectious thing that guys still do to this day. And when other teams come in, they see this and they're asking like, what are you guys doing? And it might sound silly or stupid and, not be exactly to the book of what we want. But if it creates that culture and it's going to drive the intent that we want with these athletes, like who's to say that's not right just because it isn't by the book?
Speaking of Uncrustables, Ryan, we need to get that order together so I can get you a huge box of protein Uncrustables.
Yes, I can. But we'll definitely do that.
Talk about that after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, kind of building off of what you were saying, Ryan. I mean, there's a strengths coach that we all know that TPH brought in and does a lot of unconventional stuff that if you asked me to do it, let's say this time last year, I probably would have been like, hell no, we're not doing that. But seeing the buy-in he's able to build from doing those unconventional stuff and seeing how bought in these athletes are to the workout, because we did that prior to the actual lift. Now I'm much more willing to actually be like, okay, let's do weird stuff. Let's do um let's spin around in a circle on one foot and try to beat the other person across from us, so that we can get their heart rate up and get the competitive juices flowing. So
Yeah.
it's cool. It's cool to see the journey a strength coach kind of goes through, from everything by the book to testing out all these different things to get the most out of their athletes. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's that Dunning-Kruger effect of like, you know nothing, then you think you know everything, and then you realize because you thought you know everything that you know nothing, right? Like,
Yep.
I think we've all kind of gone through those peaks and valleys of like, well, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to live and die by powerlifting, or I'm going to live and die by 3 sets of 10 and linear periodization. And like, at the end of the day, if the point is to get our athletes more engaged and give them a stimulus, if they spin in circles on one foot and that gets them going as a proper warm up more than marching and skipping, like, who gives a shit? Like, they're there to, especially youth athletes, like, learn what it takes to work with a team and do shit, even if you don't necessarily feel like it and have the discipline to do it. But also, like, let's not forget, like, this is all supposed to be fun, especially for youth sports. Like, and I think that's the biggest killer of culture, is when things become so monotonous at any level that it's just not fun in any specific way. Like, I never want to be a part of training sessions that aren't fun. Like, I like to goof around and joke around and eat as many donuts as I possibly can while we're deadlifting on my last day of work.
Now you have diabetes.
12. I don't know if you two guys remember that. It was 12. But like, that's what training should be, and that's what's going to have more of a lasting impact on our athletes and coaches, is like, look, make it fun.
I'm still trying to, what was that? The Dunning-Kruger? What the fuck?
Dunning-Kruger? Come on, you
Dunning-Kruger.
gotta.
So I went through that whole process. The Dunning-Kruger's process. What is it called?
Donna Kruger. It's Freddy Krueger's mom.
Okay. I just went through that whole process as you were talking about it, because I was like, oh, I know things. And you said that. And I was like, I don't know things. Yeah, dude. I mean, sweet.
That's and no, that's something that I think I struggled with last year. When did you leave, Ryan? Was it 22 or 23?
It was
23.
23? 22?
22.
Yeah, you have 2 years now.
Yeah, so I'm going from a private gym where 99% of my clientele is one-on-ones, and I get to create this, extremely unique experience with these people, and like really dive in and get to know these people, to an environment where I'm working with 30 people at a time, and I'm trying to make sure all 30 people is engaged and bought into the workout. And I think that was one of the most frustrating things for me, is I was still learning the ropes at that point in time. And I was like, all right, this is what EXOS says, and this is what, NSCA says. So this is how we're going to do it. And there were moments in time where I could, like, literally none of the kids were bought in. And then there were days where kids were like, yeah, let's get after it. Right. And so I've had to become very comfortable with warming up with freaking handball. Right. Like, that's our warm up. We got 8 minutes on the clock. Right. U5 are on team 1, U5 are on team 2. We're playing handball. And at the end of these 8 minutes, we're lifting. Right. So I've had to shed that whole, all right, this is step 1 of a session. This is step 2 of a session. And then we're going to go into our plyos. And then we're going to go into our power. And then we're going to go into our strength. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster of a journey. But I mean, Brett Brett seen some of these sessions, but nowadays when I warm up with handball or I warm up with spike ball or we'll warm up with like somersaults and everything, the buy-in and the vibe in the room is 10 times better versus when I did everything by the book. So now I'm trying to find that balance of this is what science says and this is what actually works and this is what's fun.
Yeah, and that's probably maybe the hardest part too, because we, no matter what, as the longer we're coaches, the more we're gonna see how other coaches do things, learn what not to do ourselves, all that kind of stuff, and then it's like you got to bleed that together with, what is like the proper way to do things based off of your research and science and stuff. And there might be things that you do that are just fun, that are fine, but we still got to make sure we get those bases in too. So it's like this little game you have to play, which is cool though.
It's a nice little dance.
All right, guys. Well, we'll have to do this again for sure. Thanks for hopping on with us.
I've got a poll of the week for you guys.
Oh God.
I asked our adult population this. It's a little morbid, so just a heads
Great.
All right. Would you rather burn to death, freeze to death, or drown to death?
Freeze.
You would rather freeze?
Yeah,
freeze to death.
Why?
Because burning would be extremely painful. Freezing, I feel like you just you start hallucinating and you just get to the point where you have no idea what's going on. Drowning, I think, would be just so much panic.
Dude, drowning would be the worst. Freezing, you'd go numb and then you'd basically slowly kind of drift.
I feel like you'll just fall pass out and sleep. You'll just
burning would be the worst. Yeah. Or is that? I forgot. It was Daniel Tosh.
See, I feel like freezing would take the longest. That's why I chose burn. It's like you got 20 seconds.
Chose burn? Oh my
you got
God.
20, you got 20 seconds of agonizing pain, and then you're done.
You don't know that 20 seconds. You don't know what temperature is the fire. You could be sitting there fucking.
Yeah. What if you're put on a smoker at 250?
What?
God dang! All right.
What if you burned and you survived the fire and you die in the hospital a week later because all your skin's gone? You have an infection.
We're trying to make it too complicated. It's
you're trying to make it way.
I am gonna say I'm very surprised you said burn.
I mean, you can't.
All right, Ryan, is your second drowning?
Yes.
Your last is burn.
Yeah, my last would be burn.
My last would be burn.
Because you would be unconscious. Think about it. If you're holding your breath, you're gonna go unconscious probably in a couple minutes.
Or you just decide to swallow water. Yeah, you just decide to swallow as much water as possible. You accept your fate.
Swallow. That's just drinking, man. That's not water all the time. Jesus Christ. All right. Good talk.
Yeah, I've been asked if I was okay just because of these last two polls of the week.
I can see why, especially when you choose burn.
Yeah.
Well, the one before this was if there was a zombie apocalypse, would you let yourself die or would you fight for survival?
See, why would you not fight for survival? Who's gonna just let themselves die?
99% of our answers was let yourself die.
Yeah, it's because there's a bunch of high school girls. What? Why would you not try to fight? If somebody's coming in, it's die.
My vote was to fight for survival.
I know. I'm just not you. I'm in general. That's asinine. Mine's what weapon do you pick? So yeah, there you go. What weapon do you guys pick besides guns?
Besides guns, what weapon am I picking
for zombie
to fight zombies?
Impact driver.
Impact driver. All right, wait. Does a nail gun classify as a gun?
Yeah, but you gotta get real close, man. You gotta hit that zombie.
I think I would do a sword. You just gotta, yeah, like Michonne from Walking Dead.
I'm going with one of those Morning Stars. We had the stick and the ball with the spikes spinning around. I've been practicing with the maces, so I think I got it. All right. Well, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please share and like.
We are professional strength.
Which way you would like to die?
Yeah, in the comments. Thank you. All right. Thanks for hopping on, man. We'll have to do this again for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, guys.
Later.